Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how much we love to geek out over grammar here, so today we're diving deep into some common English grammar slip-ups.
Yeah, even for those of us who think, we've got a pretty good handle on the language.
Right, like you'd think we'd be past this by now, but
Exactly.
we're taking inspiration from an episode of English Unlocked where hosts, I think their names are Daniel and Emma.
Yeah.
They do a fantastic job breaking down these errors in a way that's super clear and easy to understand.
Yeah, do practical stuff.
So we're going to be looking at 5 common mistakes that even advanced English learners can make. And I'm kind of excited to bust some of these myths because
we are.
I think we've all been victims of these at some point.
Absolutely. I know I have for sure.
Okay, so let's kick things off with articles A and V. I mean, those are like the building blocks of English, right?
Yeah, you learn them early on, but they can still be tricky.
They really can. And Daniel and Emma do a great job of reminding us about the basic rules.
Yeah.
A, or an, for any old noun.
When you're just talking about it generally, yeah.
Right, and then the, when it's clear which noun you're talking about.
Like if you said, I saw a dog,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know which dog you meant. But if you said, I saw the dog that always chases squirrels in the park, then I'd know exactly which one you're talking about.
Exactly. It's all about context and making sure your listeners are on the same page.
Yeah.
But what I always find interesting is that you don't always need an article at all.
Right. If you're talking about things in general, like plurals, I love dogs.
Dogs, not the dog.
Right, exactly. Or uncountables, I love music.
Okay, but wait. Wouldn't you use if you were talking about dogs as a species, like the dog is a loyal companion?
You're right, yeah. You absolutely would in that case because you're talking about the concept of a dog.
The concept of
Exactly. It's subtle, but it makes a difference.
Yeah, so it's all about context and specificity. You're talking about a specific instance or a general concept. All right, moving on to another area that can be a real headache. Prepositions. Those little words like in, on.
Yeah, those can be really tough, especially for people whose first language is different from English.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. If you tell someone meet me in the park versus meet me at the park, that completely changes the picture in your mind.
Right, totally. One sounds like we're hanging out inside the park and the other's more like meeting at the entrance or a specific spot.
Right. And as Daniel and Emma point out, prepositions don't always translate directly between languages, which makes it super challenging for learners.
Right, so memorizing examples and paying attention to how native speakers use them in different contexts is key.
I guess it's almost like you have to develop a feel for which preposition fits best in each situation.
Exactly. It's more about understanding the nuances of how the language is used rather than just memorizing a bunch of rules.
Okay, so we've got articles and prepositions down. Now let's move on to a mistake that I bet even some advanced learners make. Subject-verb agreement.
Oh, yeah. It's a classic. It seems simple enough, but it can trip you up.
Right. And, English Unlocked, they point out these tricky situations with collective nouns like everyone or each.
Which sound plural, but grammatically they're singular.
They are. So you'd say like, everyone is here, not everyone are here.
Right, and that's something that even native speakers sometimes get wrong.
Yeah, I've heard it a lot. It just, I don't know.
It sounds a bit funny, but that's the rule.
Okay, let's move on to another one that's often a struggle. Make versus do. I mean, come on, we've all been there.
Definitely. These two words are like the bane of many an English learner's existence.
Right. And Daniel and Emma give us a really helpful way to think about it. Make is about creating something new, right?
Like make a cake.
Exactly. And then do is more about performing an activity. So do your homework.
Right, that's a great example.
Okay, so that makes sense. But how do you know when to use which one in other situations?
That's where collocations come in. Basically, you start noticing that certain words just naturally go together. And English Unlocked gives some great examples. Make a decision, make a mistake, make an effort.
Or do dishes.
Exactly. Or do your best, do business.
So it's not just about the literal action, but more about the context.
Absolutely. You're picking up on those subtle shades of meaning that make all the difference.
All right, ready for our final grammar gremlin of the day.
Hit me with it.
Double negatives.
Oh, those are fun.
They are fun, but they can also be tricky, especially because they're common in some dialects and informal speech.
Right. But when you're writing or speaking formally,
Gotta watch out.
you gotta be careful.
Daniel and Emma give the classic example, I don't know nothing.
Which grammatically is incorrect.
Right, because you're essentially canceling out the negatives. So the correct way to say it would be, I don't know anything.
Exactly. And the general rule is to use only one negative word per sentence just to keep things clear.
And they give some other examples like, I never go there
Yeah.
is correct, not I don't never go there.
Right.
So it's all about keeping those negatives in check,
One negative at a time.
one negative at a time. However, even though double negatives might be grammatically incorrect, they can add emphasis
Yeah.
or even a certain tone. So sometimes, you might want to break the rules a bit for effect,
Right.
but it's good to be aware of the proper where to do it first.
Definitely. So you know when you're breaking the rules and you're doing it intentionally
Exactly.
for style.
For style points.
Exactly.
So it's like,
Yeah.
you know the rules, but you also know when to bend them a little.
Exactly. Sometimes it's about being creative with language.
Right. So we've covered 5 common mistakes that even advanced English learners make.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting is how these seemingly small things,
They can trip you up.
they can trip you up.
Yeah.
And they can actually have a big impact on how clearly we communicate.
Absolutely. I think sometimes people think that grammar is just about, being pedantic or following rules for the sake of it, but it's really not.
No, it's not.
It's about making sure that your meaning is clear.
Right.
It's about avoiding misunderstandings.
Yeah, and it's about, constructing your sentences in a way that makes sense and is easy for people to follow.
It's like having a good blueprint when you're building a house.
Oh, I like that.
If you have a good blueprint, then you know the house is going to be strong.
It's going to stand up.
Exactly. And it's the same with language. If you understand the basic rules of grammar, then you can build sentences that are clear
Solid.
and effective.
So by mastering grammar, we're essentially ensuring that our communication is structurally sound. I love it.
Exactly. And, the more you practice and pay attention to these things, the more natural and effortless your communication becomes.
Absolutely. And less about memorizing a million rules.
Yeah, you don't want to be thinking about every single rule when you're trying to speak. It should become almost like second nature,
Right, right. So what advice would you give to our listeners who are, on their own language journey?
I would say the first step is just to be aware of these common mistakes.
Awareness, yeah.
Once you know what they are, then you can start paying attention to them in your own writing and speaking.
And not be afraid to make mistakes.
Exactly. I mean, that's how we learn, right? You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Even native English speakers make mistakes.
All the time.
Yeah, it's a process, and the important thing is to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah. It takes the pressure off having to be perfect.
It does,
Yeah.
because no one's perfect.
Exactly.
And I think another important thing is to just surround yourself with good examples of English.
Surround yourself. What do you mean?
Like listen to podcasts, read books and articles,
Oh, okay.
watch movies and TV shows. Immerse yourself in the language
Right.
and pay attention to how native speakers use the language.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Exactly. If you're not sure about something, look it up. Ask a teacher. There are so many resources available these days.
Oh, there really are.
It's amazing. You've got language learning apps, you've got online forums, you've even got social media groups dedicated to English grammar.
Really? People talking about grammar on social media.
It's a thing. So there's really no excuse not to keep learning.
We've got all the tools right at our fingertips.
Absolutely. And the more you engage with the language, the more those rules will become second nature to you. It's like learning any new skill.
Practice, practice, practice.
Exactly. And before we wrap up, I actually wanted to mention something that goes beyond the specific grammar rules we've been talking about today.
Okay.
It's about the power of language in general.
I like that. The power of language. Tell me more.
It's easy to get caught up in the technicalities of grammar
Yeah, all the rules and stuff.
and lose sight of the bigger picture, but language is so much more than just a set of rules.
It's a way to connect with people.
Exactly. It's about sharing ideas.
Expressing yourself.
Yeah, it's about shaping the world around us. I mean, think about the power that words have.
Oh, yeah.
They can inspire
persuade.
comfort. They can do so much. So by mastering the nuances of English grammar, you're not just improving your language skills.
You're doing something much bigger.
Exactly. You're opening up a whole world of possibilities for yourself. You're able to communicate more effectively, build stronger relationships, express yourself more fully and authentically.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like by understanding the rules of grammar, you're unlocking a whole new level of connection with the world.
You got it. And that, I believe, is the true power of language learning.
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff. It's easy to lose sight of that when you're just hunched over a grammar book.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like you said, sometimes you need to step back and appreciate the forest, not just the individual trees.
Right. So to all of our listeners out there who are on their own English learning journeys. Keep at it. It's so worth it.
It is. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
You don't have to be perfect. Just keep learning and growing.
Right. Nobody's perfect. And the beauty of language is that it's constantly evolving.
Exactly. So we've all got those grammar gremlins, but the more we understand them, the better we can tame them.
Absolutely. And the more confident we become as communicators.
And that's what it's all about, right? Connecting with others, sharing ideas, expressing ourselves with clarity and confidence.
That's the heart of it. So keep practicing, keep exploring, and most importantly, have fun with it.
Couldn't agree more. And that wraps up our deep dive for today.
Hope you all enjoyed it.
Until next time, happy grammaring, everyone.